Hello there, this is Mr. Dunaway. This is lesson chapter 7-5 over factoring expressions. And in front of you, you would need to have a piece of paper to take notes. If you don't have this template, you can do it on your own paper or just watch this video for review if necessary. Chapter 7-5, we are factoring expressions. And the first thing that you need to understand in factoring an expression is what a greatest common factor is. Vocabulary word goes on this column over here. We often call the greatest common factor the GCF. Over here, the definition of the greatest common factor is the largest number that will divide into two or more numbers. And in the middle, we're going to work out an example of finding the greatest common factor using a 20 by 20 times table supplied to you, hopefully, from class. Well, if we're going to find the greatest common factor of 12 and 28, you might just know what it is, but let's just say that you didn't know what it is. And I think I said 12 and 28, I meant 12 and 18 is what we're finding the factor of, 12 and 18. And what you do is one way you can think of is what's the largest number that will divide into 12 and 18? Well, one way to do that is using this times table. If you look right here at the 2's, well, that means 2, this is the 2, and then this is what it's being multiplied by up here, these numbers. 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. So basically what you have here, 2, 4, 6, 8, you have multiples of 2. And you'll notice in that line, 12 and 18 are both a multiple of 2. So that means that 2 is a factor of 12 and 18. So that might be the answer, but we want to know, is that the greatest common factor? And I think if we look a little further, or you might know, hopefully you just know, but if you don't know, you can use this for help. Let's try this row right here, 3, 3, 6, 9, 12. That's got 12 and 18. Okay, so that's a greater factor than 2, so it's not 2. But if we continue going down the chart, or if we know our division and multiplication facts, we will find that right here is also a place that has 12 and 18. 6 goes into 12 and 6 goes into 18. That means 6 is a factor of both of these numbers right here. So that is the greatest common factor, and we can see on here that nowhere else will we find 12. It's not there. 12 nor 18 is in this column. This column has 18, but it doesn't have 12. So the greatest common factor is 6. Now this is just one tool to find it. There are other ways. You can make little tree charts and list the factors and circle the ones in common. Those are great. The main thing is you need to be able to find it quickly in order to do this activity. So the greatest common factor of 12 and 18 is 6. Now you have to find that in order to be able to factor the problems that you're going to be expected to factor tonight, which are they're called binomials, but we'll talk about that vocabulary later. So let's look at an example. If I asked you to factor 8x plus 10, these are the steps on the far right that you would do. The first thing you would have to do is identify the greatest common factor of both terms, 8 and 10. And if you figure that out, you'll find that the GCF is 2. So what I expect you to do is to write down what the greatest common factor is before you do anything else. And then the third step is to divide out the greatest common factor from both of the terms, and that looks like this. This means divide right there. It's a fraction. Divide 2. You've just created a fraction. 8x plus 10, all divided by 2. So when you divide those numbers by 2, you have to do them one at a time. 8x divided by 2, that would be 4x, plus 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now what you do need to write is the greatest common factor in front of that with parentheses around it. This is the answer. This is factored form of 8x plus 10. What you should do after that, now that's the answer, and that's important that you understand that that is the answer. That's the factored form of 8x plus 10. But what a smart person would do, in other words, I'm telling you to do, is to take, whoops, that's wrong, is to take whatever answer you got. I'll show you right here. Check your answer using the distributive property. If you take your answer and you distribute that and simplify it, 2 times 4 is 8x, 5 times 2 is 10. You should get what you started with, which I did, right there. Okay, and that's basically what we're doing today. You're basically doing the distributive property backwards. Take a look at the next question right here. 12x plus 18. Okay, so for the sake of the notes, what we'll do is we'll do our work in the middle, 12x plus 18. You identify the greatest common factor, whichever way works for you. If you need to hit pause, you can hit pause and try to work it out first. Or you can figure out that the greatest common factor is 6. 6 goes into 12 and 6 goes into 18, which I think is the one we did a few minutes ago at the start of the video. So we divide out the greatest common factor. We put the greatest common factor in front. 12 divided by 6 would be 2. Don't forget the x. That's really important. 18 divided by 6 is 3. There's your answer right there. And then for your check, I'm okay if you do this. Check it. You distribute. 6 times 2 is 18x. 6. Oh, no, it's not. It's 12. I can't multiply, apparently. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 6 times 3 is 18. Right there. But that is the answer when you are asked to factor. You want to see another example real quick? I think we have time. There's the sheet that you should have, hopefully, with you to make your life a little bit easier. Let's say I asked you to factor out 16x plus 4. Well, let's find the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor in this case is 4. So we have 16x plus 4. We divide that by 4. Look what happens. 4 goes in front because that's the factor. 16x divided by 4 would be 4x plus 4 divided by 4 is 1. And there's your solution right there. If you go ahead and check it, you would see that that equals 16x plus 4. And again, remember this circled part, that is your answer when you're asked to factor. And then the last one I'll do with you here is hopefully you're seeing how this works. You just got to find those factors, divide them out. You have 25x plus 15. GCF, that's a nice easy one because they both end in 5. And I do believe 5 is the largest number that goes into them, so you divide out that 5. 25 divided by 5, first of all, the 5 goes in front, right? Greatest common factor in front. 25 divided by 5 is 5x. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And there is your factored form for 25x plus 15. So hopefully that's nice and easy for you. It's basically just the distributive property backwards. It gets a lot more complicated way down the road, but for us, you do need to be able to factor expressions like that.